My name is Leonard Hayes, and I'm 70 years old. Last night I pretended to be asleep in my armchair when I heard my son Ryan whisper to his wife Megan in the kitchen. "I got the card," he said. "The PIN is 092288. "Are you sure?" Megan's voice was sharp, excited. "Positive," Ryan said, his voice thick with arrogance. "Dad said Mom's anniversary, but the clueless old man thinks that means their wedding day. Mom was always obsessed with the day she founded the company. September 22nd, 88. 092288. Now go, take it all out. There's over $100,000 in that account." I heard the back door click shut as Megan hurried out into the night. Ryan turned on the television, believing I was sound asleep. I opened my eyes in the darkness, and I smiled. I just sat there listening to the clock tick, counting the minutes. 40 minutes later, Ryan's phone sitting on the coffee table buzzed loud in the quiet room. A text message lit up the screen. It was from Megan. "Babe, your mom knew everything. I'm being detained. The cops are saying..." If you have ever felt underestimated, if you have ever been betrayed by the people who should have loved you most, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. I want to know you're out there. Tell me in the comments where you are watching this story from right now. But to understand why I was smiling, to understand why I let my son and his wife walk right into that trap, you need to know what happened 6 weeks earlier. And you need to know about my wife, Cassandra. Cassie wasn't just my partner. She was the architect of our lives. I was the guy with muscle, 2 old trucks, and a dream back in 1980. She was the one with the brains. She was the one who saw the future. She took my tiny delivery service and turned Hayes Logistics into a $90 million enterprise. I drove the routes. She built the empire. She was sharp, she was tough, and she never ever missed a single detail, which is why I still check the bank statements myself. Every Tuesday morning, it was her ritual. Now it's my way of keeping her close. I was sipping my coffee, looking over the numbers on my tablet. It was all standard. The mortgage payment for our home in Charlotte, the utilities, the donation to the university. And then I saw it. A charge from last Tuesday, $5,000, paid to a vendor I had never heard of in my life, R&M Creative Solutions. My hand froze on the coffee cup. R&M. My blood didn't just run cold, it froze solid. Ryan and Megan. It couldn't be. Ryan was helping me manage my finances. He insisted on it after the funeral. "Dad, you're grieving," he had said, putting his arm around me. "You shouldn't be worried about numbers and statements. Let me take that burden off your shoulders." He had been so caring, so concerned. But this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a mix-up. This was a test, their test, to see if I was paying attention, to see if the old man was finally losing his grip. Suddenly, I wasn't in my office anymore. I was back in that sterile beige hospice room, 6 months before she passed. The cancer had taken her weight, it had stolen her energy, but it hadn't touched her eyes. Those eyes, they were still sharp enough to cut glass. They were still seeing everything. She gripped my hand. Her skin felt like old paper, but her grip was steel. "Leo," she whispered, and her voice was thin, but it was fierce. "Listen to me. When I'm gone, do not let your grief make you stupid." "What are you talking about, Cassie? Don't talk like that." "I mean it," she insisted, pulling me closer. "Ryan, you have to be careful with Ryan. He's weak, Leo. He always has been. He has your charm, but he has a hole inside him. And that woman, that wife of his, she leads him by the nose. She has a greedy heart, Leo, a greedy, empty heart." "Cassie, he's our son," I started to say, but she cut me off with a look. "He is a 40-year-old failure who blames us for his own bad investments. The moment I'm gone, the second I'm gone. They will come for your money. They won't even wait for the funeral flowers to wilt. They will see you as a sad old man, a soft target, an open wallet. Don't you dare let them, Leo, promise me. I couldn't speak. I just nodded my throat tight. Don't just promise, she whispered, her eyes burning into mine. Be smarter. The beep of the microwave downstairs where my housekeeper was warming up lunch snapped me back to the present. I stared at the line item on my tablet. $5,000. R&M Creative Solutions. My grief, which had been this heavy, suffocating blanket for 13 long months, it suddenly evaporated. It was replaced by something else, something I hadn't felt since Cassie died. A cold, sharp, calculating anger. She was right. She was right about everything. They thought I was just a sad, stupid old man. They thought the man who helped build a $90 million company was too busy grieving to notice $5,000 had walked out the door. They had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. It was time to see just how deep this rabbit hole really went. I picked up the phone. I wasn't just going to ask Ryan about the money. I was going to play his game. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over Ryan's contact. I took a deep breath. It was time for my performance. I needed to be the man he thought I was. Sad, confused, a little bit broken. I hit the call button and put it on speaker just as Cassie would have instructed. Dad? Ryan answered on the second ring. His voice was bright. Of course it was. He was $5,000 richer. Ryan. Son, thank God. I started making sure to put a little tremor in my voice. I'm looking at my bank account here, the one you helped me set up on the tablet. And, son, I think I've been hacked. Hacked? His voice sharpened instantly. Not with concern for me, but with a different kind of alarm. He was worried I'd found something. What do you mean, Dad? What do you see? There's this charge, I said, squinting at the screen as if it were hard to read. $5,000. To a company. R&M Creative Solutions. I don't remember this, Ryan. Did I buy something? I don't remember buying anything. I let the silence hang for a second. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head as he scrambled for a plausible lie. Then I heard it. A small, patronizing chuckle. The kind of laugh you use on a child who just asked a silly question. Oh, that, he said, his voice now slick and reassuring. Dad, no, you didn't get hacked. It's okay. You just forgot. We talked about this last week, remember? I paused. We did. Yes, Dad, he said, and the condescension was so thick I could almost taste it. That's the quarterly property tax payment. For the house. I told you it was coming due. I took care of it for you. That R&M company is just the third-party processor the county uses now. It's all handled. You don't have to worry about a thing. My blood pressure spiked. I felt a hot flush creep up my neck. A third-party processor, R&M Creative Solutions. He was barely even trying. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, was what he said next. See, Dad, this is exactly why I'm helping you manage all this. Your memory. It's just not what it used to be. It's totally normal at your age after everything you've been through. It's confusing. That's why I'm here. To handle the confusing stuff. My memory. I gripped the arm of my leather chair. I looked at the small framed photo of Cassie on my desk. She was staring right at me, a tiny, knowing smile on her lips. He was using my grief as a weapon. He was calling me senile. He had forgotten who he was talking to. He had forgotten that for 35 years, Leonard Hayes had personally, meticulously, and obsessively handled our taxes. She trusted no one with the IRS. She called accountants creative storytellers. And 5 years ago, after our last big audit, she had restructured everything. She had set up an entirely separate automated trust account specifically for property and estate taxes. It was funded for the next 10 years. The payments were made electronically by Garrett Shaw's office, our lawyer, on the 1st of January and the 1st of July, every year, like clockwork. Ryan didn't need to handle anything. That $5,000 wasn't for property tax. It was for Ryan's pocket. It was for Megan's new handbag. It was a theft pure and simple, wrapped in a disgusting, patronizing lie about my mental state. I took another deep, shuddering breath this time for show. "Oh," I said, making my voice sound small and relieved. "The property tax. Of course. Oh, goodness. Ryan. I'm so sorry. You're right. I completely forgot. Thank you, son. Thank you for looking out for me. I don't know what I'd do without you." "It's no problem at all, Dad," he said back to his bright, magnanimous self, now that the crisis was averted. "You just relax. Let me worry about the numbers. That's my job now, okay?" "Okay, son. Thank you. I love you." "Love you too, Dad. Talk soon." The line clicked dead. I sat there in the silence of her office, the smell of gardenias suddenly sharp and clear. The anger was so cold it felt like ice in my veins. He didn't just steal from me. He insulted my intelligence. He belittled my grief. He called me a clueless old man. I looked at Cassie's picture again. "You were right," I whispered to her. "He didn't even wait for the flowers to wilt." I picked up the tablet and stared at the $5,000 lie. This was just the beginning. Cassie had warned me. And in that moment I knew I couldn't just be sad anymore. I had to be smarter. "You underestimated me, Ryan," I whispered to the empty room. "But that's not your biggest mistake. You forgot that your mother was the smartest person in every room, and she saw you coming a mile away." Ryan called me a clueless old man. He forgets who I built my life with. I may be 70 years old, but I am the co-founder of Hayes Logistics. Now, I'm not going to lie. I was never the brains of the operation. That was always Cassie. I was just a guy back in 1980 with 2 beat-up Peterbilts, $10,000 in savings, and a willingness to drive 800 miles overnight. I knew how to fix an engine. I knew how to manage a route. I knew how to talk to drivers. Cassie knew how to build an empire. She was the one who in 1985 saw that refrigerated transport was the future long before the big grocery chains demanded it. She was the one who in 1995 forced us to invest in logistics software when all our competitors were still using carbon copies and fax machines. She was the one who personally negotiated our fuel contracts, saving us millions. Those 2 trucks and 10 grand today, Hayes Logistics is a $90 million company with a fleet of 500. All because of her. I was the engine. She was the driver. She was brilliant at everything. Except him. Our son. Ryan. He had her intelligence, but none of her drive. He didn't want to work. He wanted to invest. He wanted the easy money, the quick flip. He saw the company not as a legacy to build, but as a bank to withdraw from. Cassie. God bless her, she tried. When Ryan graduated with his business degree, he presented us with his first venture, a .com startup that promised to revolutionize, I don't even remember what. Cassie gave him $50,000. It vanished in 6 months. 2 years later, it was a boutique marketing firm. He didn't want clients. He wanted the lifestyle of a CEO. The fancy office, the expensive dinners. Cassie gave him $100,000 of her own money. That one lasted a year. The third time, that was when Megan came into the picture. They had just gotten engaged. It was a real estate flip, a sure thing. They just needed $200,000 for the down payment. I'll never forget the night Cassie finally cut him off. She called a family board meeting at our kitchen table. She didn't raise her voice. She just slid the profit and loss statement for his failed real estate venture across the table. It was printed in red ink. "That's it, Ryan," she said, her voice quiet but final. "No more. The bank of mom and dad is closed. You want to invest? Go get a job. Invest your paycheck." I told her later that night she was being too hard on him. She turned to me, her eyes tired. "He's not stupid, Leo," she said. "That's the problem. He's just lazy. And he's weak." And Megan was gasoline on his fire. Megan came from a family with nothing, but she walked around acting like she was owed everything. She saw Cassie not as a mother-in-law, but as a rival and a bank. I remember our 40th anniversary party. The company was thriving. We held it at the Charlotte Country Club. Megan, in a dress that must have cost more than my first car, cornered Cassie by the bar. I was close enough to hear. "Cassie," Megan cooed, touching the sapphire necklace Cassie was wearing. "That is divine. It would look just perfect with the gown I'm wearing to the hospital gala next month." She wasn't asking. She was hinting so hard it was practically a demand. Cassie just smiled. That polite, razor-sharp smile of hers. The one that meant you were about to be surgically dissected. "Oh, this old thing," Cassie said, touching the necklace. "It was a 40th anniversary gift from my husband Megan. You know, for spending 40 years building a $90 million company with him. You should try it sometime. The building part, I mean. It feels wonderful." Megan's face turned to stone. She didn't speak to Cassie for the rest of the night. They've been waiting, both of them. Waiting for the one person who always saw right through them. Waiting for Cassie to be out of the way. They think her death was their opportunity. They think I'm the soft target. The sad, clueless old man who's too busy grieving to check the bank statements. I looked at the picture of Cassie on the desk. That brilliant, beautiful, tough woman. They don't know. They have no idea. They don't know that Cassie's last move, her final brilliant strategic move, was already on the board, and I was the only piece she left behind to execute it. The following Sunday, they arrived for dinner. This was a new tradition Ryan had insisted on. "We've got to check on you, Dad," he'd said. "Make sure you're eating properly." I knew it meant they were coming to inventory the house to see what was worth taking. Megan swept in wearing a new silk blouse I knew cost at least $800. Ryan followed, clapping me on the shoulder. "Looking good, Dad. Holding up well." We sat at the dining table, the one Cassie and I had bought after our first big year. I served the roast chicken I'd made. And as Ryan reached for the potatoes, his sleeve pulled back. My eyes locked onto it. A flash of gold and steel. It was a new watch. And it wasn't just any watch. It was a brand-name high-end Swiss monstrosity. The kind of watch that screams, "I have new money and I want you to know it." I knew for a fact that watch cost at minimum $15,000. I put on my best confused old man face. My eyes went a little wide. I pointed with my fork. "My goodness, Ryan," I said, my voice full of false admiration. That is quite a timepiece. Wow, business must be booming." I knew his real estate career was a joke. He hadn't closed a sale in 6 months. I knew because Cassie had paid for his brokerage license, and she had an alert set up for every sale he ever made. He was a failed investor, a failed marketer, and a failed realtor. Ryan chuckled. He didn't just smile. He grinned. He shot a look at Megan, who was beaming at him, her eyes sparkling with adoration for her brilliant husband. "Oh, this old thing," he said, casually rotating his wrist to make the gold catch the light. "Yeah, business is good, Dad. But you know, I actually have you to thank for this one." I put my fork down. I made my confusion look genuine. Me? I asked, my voice wavering just a bit. What? What do you mean, son? I don't remember buying you a watch. No, Dad. Even better. He leaned forward conspiratorially, as if he were letting me in on a brilliant secret. You know how I've been managing your investment portfolio, keeping an eye on things for you. Yes, I said, drawing the word out. Well, I saw an opportunity, a really hot tech stock, an AI company. It was about to just pop. I knew it, a sure thing. So I borrowed a little from your main brokerage account. Just a small float. 50,000. My heart hammered. $50,000. I put it on that stock. He continued, his voice full of self-congratulation. And just like I predicted, it jumped 20%, Dad. In 1 week, can you believe it? He sat back triumphant. So I sold it, he said, spreading his hands wide. I put the original 50,000 right back into your account, plus a nice little $2,000 profit for you. You're welcome. And I kept the rest of the profit. My management fee, $10,000. Figured I'd treat myself. You made money, I made money. Everybody wins, right? He laughed again. I was going to tell you about it, but capital gains tax harvesting. It's all very complicated financial stuff. Easier for me to just handle it and give you the good news. I stared at him. I just stared and nodded slowly, forcing a thin smile onto my face. A management fee. Everybody wins. My blood wasn't just boiling, it was turning to ice. I knew my portfolio. I knew it inside and out, because Cassie had spent a decade restructuring it. It was 90% rock-solid, low-yield municipal bonds and blue-chip dividend stocks. It was a fortress. It was designed, in her words, to be Ryan-proof. It was not a slush fund for him to day trade hot stocks. There was no stock. There was no 20% pop. There was no management fee. He had simply logged into my account, an account I had given him access to in a moment of grief-stricken stupidity, transferred $15,000 to his own account, and bought himself a watch. He had stolen it. And now he was sitting at my table eating my food and boasting about it to my face, disguising the theft as a brilliant financial move he'd done for my benefit. And he called me clueless. Megan, who had been listening with rapt attention, reached over and patted my hand. Her own gaudy diamond ring, one I now suspected I had paid for, clicked against my wedding band. "Isn't he brilliant, Leo?" she cooed. "Ryan is just so smart with money. You're so lucky to have him looking out for you now that you're all alone." I looked at her perfectly manicured hand on mine. I looked at Ryan's smug, smiling face. The $5,000 lie about the taxes. That was a test. This was arrogance. This was them getting comfortable. This was them celebrating their victory over the sad, stupid old man. They were moving faster than I thought. They were getting bolder. "Yes," I finally said, my voice quiet. "Very lucky." I picked up my fork and took a bite of chicken. It tasted like ash. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. It was time to escalate. It was time to set Cassie's real trap. I stared at him. I just stared and nodded slowly, forcing a thin smile onto my face. "Yes," I finally said, my voice quiet. "Very lucky." That theft, the arrogance of the $15,000 watch, sat in my gut like spoiled food for the next few days. I watched Ryan and Megan leave my house that Sunday, waving from the porch, like the happy, cared-for father I was supposed to be. I saw Ryan jingle his car keys deliberately, making sure his new watch caught the evening sun. He was proud of himself. He thought he'd just pulled off the perfect crime. I let Monday pass, then Tuesday. I went to the mailbox at the end of my long driveway both days. On Tuesday, it was empty. On Wednesday, empty again. On Thursday, all I found was a single catalog addressed to current resident. I stood there by the road, the mailbox door open, staring into the empty metal box. I hadn't just not received mail. I hadn't received anything. No bank statements, no utility bills, no investment reports from my brokerage, no subscription magazines. Nothing. I've lived in this house for 40 years. I have never had an empty mailbox for 3 days straight. A cold knot formed in my stomach. This wasn't a coincidence. This was tactical. The $5,000 tax lie. The $15,000 management fee. Ryan was stealing openly now. What was the next logical step for a thief who thought his victim was clueless? He would hide the evidence. He would stop the bank statements from arriving. He would intercept the paper trail. I walked back to the house, my legs feeling heavy. This was a new level of violation. He wasn't just stealing my money anymore. He was trying to blind me. He was trying to build a wall around me so I could only see what he allowed me to see. I picked up the phone. I had to play the part one more time. I had to be the confused, slightly dotty old man he believed I was. I dialed his number. "Ryan," I said, injecting a note of mild, almost senile confusion into my voice. "Son, a funny thing. I don't think I've gotten any mail all week, not a single bill. The mailbox is just empty. Is the postal service on strike or something?" I heard him sigh on the other end of the line. It was a deep, exaggerated sigh of a man burdened with an impossible task. Then came the laugh. That same slick, patronizing laugh. "A strike? Oh, Dad, no," he said. "Gosh, you know what, that is my fault. I completely forgot to tell you. My bad." I held the phone, my knuckles white. Forgot? Forgot what, Ryan? What's going on with my mail?" "I set up a mail forward for you, Dad. Last week," he said, his voice oozing with that fake, syrupy concern that now made my skin crawl. It was getting to be too much. All those statements, those pre-approved credit cards. I mean, you're grieving. You're trying to heal. You don't need to be dealing with all that junk mail and those confusing bills every day." He had forwarded my mail. He had redirected my private, personal, legal correspondence to his house without asking me, without telling me. I felt my vision tunnel. This wasn't just about money. This was about control. This was a power grab. This was him trying to make me a prisoner. "It's just easier this way," he continued, oblivious to my silent rage. "I'll go through it all for you. I'll toss the junk, I'll pay the bills online from the account, and I'll bring you anything important. It's just, you know how these scammers are, Dad. They target seniors. They target people who are grieving. They send fake bills, fake sweepstakes notices. I'm just protecting you. That's all. Just looking out for my old man." Protecting me. He was isolating me. He had my bank logins. Now he had my mail. He was creating a world where he was the sole source of truth. If a bank sent a fraud alert, I would never see it. If my brokerage sent a warning about unusual activity, I would never know. He was curating my reality. And in that moment, Cassie's voice echoed in my head clearer than ever. That night in the hospice room, her hand gripping mine. "It's not the money I worry about, Leo," she'd whispered, her breathing shallow, but her voice firm. "It's your pride. It's your dignity. He won't just take your wallet. He'll try to take you. He'll make you a prisoner in your own life. He'll make you doubt your own mind." My God, she was right. That's exactly what he was doing. He had called my memory not good. Now he was protecting me from scammers. He was laying the groundwork. He was building his case brick by brick that I was incompetent. If I ever did discover the full extent of his theft and tried to challenge him, who would anyone believe him, the sharp, successful, caring son who managed everything, or me, the clueless old man whose memory was failing, who was paranoid, who couldn't even manage his own mail? I had to force a shaky breath into the receiver. Oh, I said, my voice small. Oh, Ryan, that's very thoughtful of you, son. I guess I just wish you had told me. I was getting worried. I know, Dad, but that's the whole point, he said, his voice victorious. I don't want you to worry. Not about anything. You just focus on healing, on resting. I've got everything else handled. I'm the man of the house now, right? The line clicked dead. The man of the house. He had no idea. He thought he was building a prison around me. He didn't realize he was just handing me the final damning piece of evidence I needed. Cassie's plan wasn't just about catching him in one lie. It was about letting him build his own cage lie by lie, theft by theft. The $5,000 lie. The $15,000 theft. And now the mail. Federal mail tampering. This was systematic. This was a hostile takeover of my life. I put my phone down. I picked up my car keys. It was time to go see Garrett. It was time to open Cassie's box. The man of the house now, right? His voice echoed in my ears, slick with that false, pitying tone. He hadn't just stolen from me. He hadn't just insulted my intelligence. He had taken the last, most vital tool of my independence, my connection to the outside world. He was building a cocoon of ignorance around me, spinning it thread by thread with lies about protecting me. Cassie's voice was suddenly so clear it was as if she were standing right next to me, her hand on my shoulder. He won't just take your wallet, Leo. He'll try to take you. He'll make you doubt your own mind. The grief that had weighed me down for 13 months evaporated. It was replaced by something cold, heavy, and clear. Focus. I stood up. I didn't grab a coat. I didn't check my reflection. I grabbed my car keys from the hook by the door, the same keys I'd hung there every day for 40 years. I didn't call ahead. I couldn't risk it. For all I knew, Ryan had figured out a way to monitor my phone calls, too. I just drove. The 20-minute drive to uptown Charlotte felt like an hour. My hands were clamped so tight on the steering wheel my knuckles were white. I parked in the garage on Tryon Street, my mind blank. I walked across the street and into the K&L Tower, the building where Garrett Shaw had kept his law offices for as long as I could remember. Garrett and Cassie. They went back. Way back. They were rivals in law school, became best friends, and he was the only human being on planet Earth that Cassandra Hayes trusted with the complex, multi-layered architecture of our finances. He was the executor of our estate. He was the one who knew where all the bodies were buried, figuratively speaking. I didn't stop at the reception desk. Martha, his secretary of 30 years, looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "Mr. Hayes, good morning. We weren't expecting you. Can I didn't mean to be rude to her, but I couldn't stop. I walked right past her desk and pushed open the heavy oak door to Garrett's corner office. He was on the phone looking out the massive window at the city skyline. He spun around in his chair, startled. "Leo, what?" He saw my face. His entire demeanor changed. The professional smile vanished, replaced instantly by deep, profound concern. He immediately raised a finger to the person on the phone. "I have to call you back." He hung up, the click of the receiver sounding loud in the suddenly silent room. "Leo," he said, standing up. "My God. Sit down. What's happened? Is it your health?" I stood there, my hands shaking. I couldn't seem to make my legs move to the chair. "It's Ryan," I said. My voice was hoarse. I barely recognized it. "It's Ryan. He's stealing from me." I didn't mean to, but it all came pouring out. The $5,000 tax payment to a company named R&M Creative Solutions. The $15,000 watch he'd earned as a management fee. And just now, the mail. "He forwarded my mail, Garrett," I said, finally sinking into the leather chair opposite his desk. He redirected everything to his house. He's trying to cut me off. He's trying to make me look senile. He's trying to... I couldn't finish. I just put my head in my hands. Cassie. My God, Cassie was right. She was right about everything. I expected Garrett to be shocked. I expected him to be outraged, to start yelling about lawsuits and fraud charges. He did none of those things. I looked up. He was just standing there watching me. He wasn't surprised at all. He looked profoundly sad and tired. He ran a hand over his bald head and let out a long, heavy sigh that seemed to come from the bottom of his feet. So, he said, his voice quiet, it's finally happened. My head snapped up. What do you mean it's finally happened? You knew. Garrett didn't answer me. He walked past me over to the large built-in bookshelf that covered the entire back wall. It was filled with thick, leather-bound legal volumes. I was wondering when you'd finally come, Leo, he said, his back to me. I honestly thought it would be sooner. Cassie. She figured you'd be here within 6 months of her passing. It took you 13. You talked about this, I said, standing up. You and Cassie talked about Ryan stealing from me. He ignored my question. His hand went to a specific book, a thick, worn copy of The Art of War. He pulled it. There was a soft click, and a section of the bookshelf swung inward, revealing a large, black, digital safe embedded in the wall. She knew Leo, he said, his voice muffled as he punched in a code. She knew exactly who Ryan was. She knew exactly what he and that wife of his would do the second she was gone. The safe beeped, and the heavy door swung open with a hydraulic hiss. She knew this day would come. He reached inside past stacks of documents and pulled out a box. It wasn't a metal file box. It was a heavy, polished mahogany box about the size of a shoebox. It was sealed shut with a thick, unbroken band of dark red wax stamped with the Hayes Logistics corporate seal. Garrett turned around. He held the box with both hands almost reverently. He walked back to his desk and placed it gently on the polished wood between us. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break a rib. She knew, I whispered. Garrett looked me straight in the eye. His gaze was steady and sad. She didn't just know Leo. He slid the box toward me. She left a plan. I just stared at the box. The dark red wax stamped with the Hayes H looked like a drop of dried blood. A plan. My wife was gone for 13 months, and she was still one step ahead of everyone. When did she give this to you? I whispered. Garrett sank back into his own chair, his eyes fixed on the box as if it were a living thing. About 6 months before she passed, he said, his voice heavy. She came in here looking thinner than I'd ever seen her, but her eyes. God, Leo, her eyes were on fire. She was all business. He leaned forward, his hands clasped on the desk. She made me swear, Leo, swear on our 30-year friendship. She said, Garrett, Leo is going to be a mess when I'm gone. He's a good man, but his heart is too soft for that boy. Ryan and that wife of his, they're vultures. They'll wait until he's weak, and then they'll start picking at the bones. I flinched. Picking at the bones. That's exactly what it felt like. She told me, Garrett continued, that I was forbidden to give you this box. I couldn't warn you. I couldn't even hint that it existed. She said you wouldn't believe me. You'd defend Ryan. You'd call me paranoid. She said the only way you'd be ready to listen, the only way you'd be ready to fight, was if you came to me after you realized what Ryan was doing, after you saw the theft with your own 2 eyes. He looked at me with a profound, weary sadness. She knew you, Leo. She knew your grief would blind you, but she also knew your integrity wouldn't let you ignore the truth once you saw it. He pushed the box across the polished desk. She was right, wasn't she? I knotted my throat too tight to speak. She was right about everything. I finally managed to get out. I can't believe she knew she was that sick. We only knew for 6 months. Garrett looked away. He studied a painting on the far wall. He looked uncomfortable for the first time. Leo, sit down. There's something else you need to know. Something that's going to be hard to hear. I gripped the arms of the chair. I suddenly felt cold, colder than I had in 13 months. What else, Garrett? He turned back to me, his gaze steady. The cancer, he said softly. The pancreatic cancer. She didn't find out 6 months before she passed. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? We were at the doctor. Dr. Evans said, Dr. Evans told you what Cassie told him to tell you. Garrett interrupted gently. Leo, she found out. She got the final diagnosis. 18 months before she died. A full year before she ever let you know. The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. 18 months. A year. A whole year she knew she was dying. A year. She had gone to company dinners. She had played with our grandchildren. She had argued with me about what color to paint the porch. She sat on that porch with me and watched the sunset night after night, all while carrying this terrible, agonizing secret. Why? I whispered. The word just fell out of my mouth. Why would she? Why wouldn't she tell me? For 2 reasons. Garrett said, his voice firm, pulling me back from the shock. First, to protect you. She knew you, Leo. She knew you'd stop living. You wouldn't have been her husband. You would have been her full-time caretaker. You'd sit by her bed and just watch her die. She told me she wanted that last year with you to be normal. She wanted you to laugh. She wanted to be your wife, not just your patient. I closed my eyes, remembering that last year. It had been normal. It had been good. My God, the strength that must have taken. And the second reason? I asked, dreading the answer. Garrett tapped the mahogany box. She needed time, he said. She knew that the second the word cancer was spoken, Ryan and Megan would start circling. She needed time to prepare. Time to set the traps. Time to protect the empire. Time to protect you from your son. He let that sink in. She spent that last secret year. That year you thought everything was fine. Setting up this. She was the ultimate strategist, Leo. She was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. I looked at the box. It wasn't just a box. It was Cassie's final move. Her last brilliant, vicious, and loving final move. What did she do? Garrett finally allowed himself a small, sad smile. She did something brilliant. Something only Cassie could pull off. She knew Ryan had his eyes on the main brokerage account, the one he just stole the $15,000 from. She knew he had access. She knew he watched it like a hawk, but he never paid attention to her personal tech portfolio. The stocks she picked in the early 2000s, Apple, Google, Amazon, the ones you always told her were too risky. He chuckled. Over that last year, he continued, she quietly, piece by piece, liquidated that entire portfolio. She did it in small increments through different brokers so it wouldn't trigger any market alerts, or any alerts to Ryan, who was already monitoring your joint accounts without your knowledge. He leaned in, his voice dropping. She sold off more than $1 million in tech stocks, Leo. Right under his nose. He never even knew it existed. I was stunned. $1 million. Just gone from the books. Hidden. $1 million. I repeated, my voice hoarse. Where did it go? Where is it, Garrett? Garrett let out a slow breath. He ran his hand over the smooth, waxed lid of the mahogany box. She was a master, Leo. A grandmaster. She didn't just hide it. She divided it. She protected you, and she set a trap, all in one move. He leaned forward, lowering his voice even though we were alone in his soundproof office. She protected the lion's share. The vast majority of it, $900,000, she moved offshore for a day, then funneled it back through 2 different holding companies, and finally deposited it into a newly created irrevocable trust. It's in your name, Leo, but it's locked down so tight, it would take a nuclear blast to crack it. Ryan can't touch it. Megan can't touch it. No creditor, no lawsuit. No one can get their hands on it. But you, and even you, can only draw the interest until you're 75. She made sure your future was secure. I was reeling. An irrevocable trust, holding companies. She had done all this while she was dying, while I was sitting next to her holding her hand thinking we were just watching old movies. So the money is safe, I said, a wave of relief washing over me. 900,000 of it is. Garrett corrected me. His eyes turned from sad to sharp. But the rest of it, Leo. The other 100,000, plus a little extra she threw in from her personal account. That's the brilliant part. That's where Cassie stopped being a wife and became a hunter. He paused as if to make sure I was ready. She knew Ryan. She knew he was greedy, but she also knew he was an impulsive coward. He's lazy. $1 million score might actually scare him. It's too big, too complex to hide. It implies serious consequences. Ryan doesn't want serious consequences. He just wants easy money. So what did she do with it? She created the perfect mousetrap, Garrett said. She didn't put it with our usual banks. She didn't put it with Bank of America or Wells Fargo where Ryan might have connections or be able to see joint accounts. She went across town to National Commerce Bank, a smaller regional bank where we have no history, and she opened a simple standard-issue joint checking account. Just her name and yours. As of this morning, it has a balance of $101,450.22. I was lost. But, Garrett, why leave it exposed like that? A joint account. He could try to access that. You're damned right he could, Garrett said, a cold smile touching his lips for the first time. That's the point, Leo. It's the cheese. She knew Ryan was already sniffing around your finances. She knew he was stealing small amounts like your $5,000 tax payment. She knew he was arrogant. She knew he'd eventually find it. And $100,000. It's the perfect number. He stood up and walked to the window looking down at the street. It's not enough to make him think he's robbing a fortress. But it's life-changing for a small-time grifter like him. It's enough to pay off all his gambling debts. It's enough for him and Megan to put a down payment on that bigger house she's always wanted. It's enough to make him stupid. It's the one number in the world he absolutely cannot resist. He turned back to me. And from Cassie's perspective, it was a calculated acceptable loss. If, in the worst-case scenario, he actually managed to steal it and vanish, it wouldn't destroy you. The 900,000 is safe. Your future is secure. She was willing to burn 100 grand, Leo, just to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt exactly who her son was. My God. I sank back into the chair. A trap. A financial trap set with $100,000 laid by my dying wife to catch our own son. I should have been horrified. But all I felt was a strange, cold wave of admiration. This was the woman I had married. This was the brilliant, ruthless strategist who had built an empire from nothing. And she had used her last year on Earth to protect it. To protect me. I looked at the sealed mahogany box on the desk. It suddenly felt 10 times heavier. I finally found my voice. So, I whispered, my throat dry. She set the trap. She put the cheese in it. I looked up at Garrett. She had gone to company dinners. She had played with our grandchildren. She had argued with me about what color to paint the porch. She sat on that porch with me and watched the sunset night after night, all while carrying this terrible, agonizing secret. Why? I whispered. The word just fell out of my mouth. Why would she? Why wouldn't she tell me? For 2 reasons, Garrett said, his voice firm, pulling me back from the shock. First, to protect you. She knew you, Leo. She knew you'd stop living. You wouldn't have been her husband. You would have been her full-time caretaker. You'd sit by her bed and just watch her die. She told me she wanted that last year with you to be normal. She wanted you to laugh. She wanted to be your wife, not just your patient. I closed my eyes, remembering that last year. It had been normal. It had been good. My God, the strength that must have taken. And the second reason? I asked, dreading the answer. Garrett tapped the mahogany box. She needed time, he said. She knew that the second the word cancer was spoken, Ryan and Megan would start circling. She needed time to prepare. Time to set the traps. Time to protect the empire. Time to protect you from your son. He let that sink in. She spent that last secret year, that year you thought everything was fine, setting up this. She was the ultimate strategist, Leo. She was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. I looked at the box. It wasn't just a box. It was Cassie's final move. Her last brilliant, vicious, and loving final move. What did she do? Garrett finally allowed himself a small, sad smile. She did something brilliant. Something only Cassie could pull off. She knew Ryan had his eyes on the main brokerage account, the one he just stole the $15,000 from. She knew he had access. She knew he watched it like a hawk. But he never paid attention to her personal tech portfolio. The stocks she picked in the early 2000s, Apple, Google, Amazon, the ones you always told her were too risky. He chuckled. Over that last year, he continued, she quietly, piece by piece, liquidated that entire portfolio. She did it in small increments through different brokers so it wouldn't trigger any market alerts, or any alerts to Ryan, who was already monitoring your joint accounts without your knowledge. He leaned in, his voice dropping. She sold off more than $1 million in tech stocks, Leo. Right under his nose. He never even knew it existed. I was stunned. $1 million. Just gone from the books. Hidden. $1 million. I repeated, my voice hoarse. Where did it go? Where is it, Garrett? Your job, Garrett said, gesturing to the polished mahogany box, is to open that. Cassandra left you specific instructions, your script, if you will. I looked at the box. My hands were shaking, but not from grief anymore. It was anticipation. I ran my thumb over the hard wax seal. The Hayes Logistics H. I pressed my thumbnail into it, cracked the seal, and lifted the heavy lid. Inside, resting on a bed of black velvet, were only 2 items. The first was a brand new navy blue debit card. It was pristine. National Commerce Bank was printed in gold letters. Below it, in crisp embossed silver, was Cassandra's name. And mine. Leonard B. Hayes. The second item was a single envelope made of thick, cream-colored cardstock. My name was written on the front in her familiar, elegant script. Leo. I picked it up. The paper was cool to the touch. I unfolded the letter. My dearest Leo, it began. If you are reading this, it means our son has finally shown his true colors. Good. I know you are heartbroken. I know you feel like you failed. Do not. You didn't fail, he did. Now I forbid you to be sad. Your time for grief is over. It's time to be angry. It's time to be the man who built an empire with me. It's time for you to catch him. My eyes blurred for a second, but I blinked the tears back. This was not a love letter. This was a battle plan. I have prepared the stage, Leo. It's your job to perform. Inside this box is a debit card. It is linked to a new account with $101,450 in it. It's our bait. Your son, with his mail forwarding and his management of your accounts, will never find this on his own. You have to show it to him. Here's the script. You must follow it exactly. 1. You are to discover this card, perhaps while cleaning out my old jewelry box. 2. You must call Ryan. You must be in a complete panic. You are an old, confused man who has just found a fortune. You are scared of the IRS. You are worried it's a mistake. Sell it, Leo. You were always a terrible actor, so just be the man you've been for the last 13 months, lost without me. I couldn't help but let out a short, sharp laugh. Even from the grave, she was teasing me. 3, the letter continued. You must tell him you don't know the PIN. This is the most important part of the lie. Tell him you tried to check the balance at an ATM, but it didn't work. Tell him you tried our wedding anniversary 0518, May 18th. Tell him the machine said, invalid PIN, and that you're confused because it's asking for 6 digits, not 4. You must seem completely baffled by this. This will be the hook. Then you must leave the card where he can get it, on your desk, on the kitchen counter. Make it easy for him. He will see the confused old man who can't even remember a PIN, and he will see $100,000. The letter ended with a final chilling paragraph. He won't be able to help himself, Leo. His arrogance and his greed are who he is. He will believe he is smarter than his senile father. He will take the card. He will drain the account. He will hang himself. Let him. This is the last lesson I can teach him. Don't you dare get soft. Don't you dare ruin my plan. It was signed simply, Your Cassie. I folded the letter, my hands steady now. The tremor was gone. The grief was gone. All that was left was a cold, clear purpose. I knew exactly what I had to do. I had my script. I looked up at Garrett, who was watching me, his face unreadable. Just one question, I said, my voice low and hard. The letter tells me to lie about the 0518 PIN. It tells me to be confused about the 6 digits. But how did she know he would figure out the real one? I had just read the script. But now Garrett was about to tell me how the trap really worked. Garrett looked me straight in the eye, his gaze steady and sad. She didn't just know Leo. She left a plan. My job was to be the bait. I left Garrett's office with the mahogany box tucked under my arm. It felt as heavy as a coffin. I drove home not in a fog of grief, but in a strange, hyper-focused state. The city of Charlotte passed by my windows, but I saw none of it. I was a man on a mission. I was an actor preparing for his one and only role. The role Cassie had cast me in, the clueless old man. I walked into my empty house. The silence, which had been my suffocating companion for 13 months, now felt different. It felt charged. It felt like the quiet before a storm. I sat in my study for an hour, just holding the cold plastic debit card in my hand. National Commerce Bank. A bank I'd never used. I went over Cassie's letter again. You were always a terrible actor, Leo, so just be the man you've been. Lost without me. I can do that, I whispered to her photograph. I've been playing that part perfectly. I picked up the phone. I waited until 5:30 p.m., right when I knew Ryan would be getting home from his job. I took a deep, shaky breath, deliberately making my hand tremble as I dialed his number. My heart was hammering not from fear, but from adrenaline. Showtime. Cassie. Ryan answered on the third ring, his voice casual. Hey, Dad, what's up? I didn't give him a chance to get comfortable. I let out a sound, a half sob, half gasp. Ryan, I yelled, making sure my voice cracked with panic. Ryan. Oh, thank God. Thank God you picked up. You have to come over, right now. The casual tone on his end vanished. He was instantly on high alert. Dad? Dad? What is it? What's wrong? Are you okay? Did you fall? Did you call 911? No, I'm not hurt, I stammered, following Cassie's script to the letter. It's worse. I don't know what to do. I was cleaning out Mom's closet. Just going through her old jewelry boxes, like you said I should. Okay, Dad. Slow down, breathe, he said, but his voice was impatient. What did you find? I found a box, I said, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. An old wooden box I've never seen before. And inside Ryan, there was this card. A debit card. From a bank I've never heard of. National Commerce Bank. So, he said, clearly annoyed. It's probably an old dead account, Dad. What's the big deal? Now the bait. That's what I thought, I said, my voice rising in manufactured hysteria. But it wasn't expired. It looked new, so I called the number on the back. Just to see. Ryan, I had to give them Mom's social security number and they... Oh, God, Ryan. Dad, what? He snapped. Spit it out. They said it's a joint account, with my name on it too. They said I'm the surviving owner. A joint account. How much, Dad? His voice had changed. The impatience was gone, replaced by a sharp, sudden animal focus. I let the silence hang for 3 full seconds. Then I delivered the payload. Ryan, they said there's $101,450 in it. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. It was so total, I thought for a second he had hung up. I could hear nothing. No breathing. No background noise from his house. It was the sound of pure, unadulterated greed processing information. It was the sound of a predator that had just seen its prey. I waited. 1 beat. 2. Just like Cassie would have. I put the final panicked touch on my performance. Ryan, I whispered, my voice trembling. Son, are you still there? I heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. It sounded like he'd been punched. Dad. Ryan's voice was completely different. The casual tone was gone. It was replaced by a tight, strained, high-pitched squeak. Dad, are you sure $100,000? 101,000, I corrected him, making my voice tremble. 101,450 and 22 cents. That's what the lady on the phone said. Ryan, what is this? Is this even legal? Did Mom hide this from the IRS? Are we in trouble? This was a crucial part of Cassie's script. Make him think I was scared of the money, not excited by it. No, Dad, it's fine, he stammered, his mind clearly racing a mile a minute. It's probably just an old account. But 100,000, but I can't do anything with it, I wailed, hitting the next beat of the performance. That's what I'm trying to tell you, I thought. Okay, I'll just go to the ATM down at the Harris Teeter, just to check the balance on the receipt. Just to make sure the lady wasn't mistaken. You went to an ATM? His voice was suddenly sharp. Dad, why would you do that? Well, I wanted to see, I said, sounding defensive. But it wouldn't let me in. I tried the PIN. Mom's birthday. Nothing. So I tried. Our anniversary. 0518. May 18th. And the machine just beeped at me. It said, invalid PIN code. And then, this is the strangest part. Ryan, it said the PIN needs to be 6 digits long, 6. Who has a 6-digit PIN? I don't know any 6-digit numbers. It must be broken. I let that hang in the air. The hook, the bait, the puzzle I was pretending I couldn't solve. Silence. I knew exactly what was happening in that moment. I could see him, his greedy, calculating mind spinning. 6 digits. 0518 didn't work. The old man is confused. What 6-digit number mattered to Mom? I knew in that second he would start thinking about other anniversaries. The founding of the company. September 22nd, 1988, 092288. He wouldn't be able to resist the urge to prove he was smarter than me. When he finally spoke, his voice was a cannon shot. "Dad, stop!" he yelled. He actually yelled at me. "Stop, right now! Do you hear me? Do not touch that card again. Do not go back to the ATM. And do not call the bank again. Do you understand me?" "What? Why, Ryan, you're scaring me." "You could freeze the account," he shouted, inventing a problem. "My God, Dad, this isn't simple. You said it was a joint account, with your name on it." "Yes, that's what the lady—" Okay. He was breathing hard now. This could be a complicated trust vehicle. It probably has massive tax implications. If you just touch it the wrong way, you could trigger a huge IRS audit. You could lose half of it in penalties. You could get in legal trouble, Dad. You have no idea what you're doing. It was a brilliant performance, really. He was framing his control as protection. He was using my feigned fear of the IRS against me. "Oh my goodness," I whispered, playing my part. "An audit, legal trouble, I didn't even think of that. I saw the money. Don't think, Dad," he said, his voice now low, urgent, and completely in charge. "That's my job. Remember, I handle this stuff for you. I know this world. You don't. You need to just stay put. Don't move. Where's the card right now?" It's here, on the desk, in Mom's old jewelry box." "Good," he said. "Leave it there. Don't touch it. I'm canceling my plans. Megan and we're going to come over. We'll bring dinner, 7 o'clock. Okay, just to make sure you're all right. And I'll take a look at the card. I'll look at the paperwork. I'll handle it." "Okay, Dad. I will handle everything." "Oh, Ryan," I said, letting out a shaky sigh of pure manufactured relief. "Thank you, son. Yes, 7 o'clock. That's good. I'm so glad you're here to handle this." "Of course, Dad. That's what I'm here for," he said, the smug superiority back in his voice. "I've got you. Just don't do anything until I get there. Promise me." "I promise. I won't touch a thing." "Good. See you at 7. He hung up the phone. I stared at the black screen. I didn't move for a full minute. I listened to the quiet ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Then I looked over at Cassie's photograph on the desk. "He took the bait, my love," I whispered. "The trap is set. He'll be here at 7. I stood up, my body feeling lighter than it had in over a year. I walked to the kitchen to pour myself a glass of water. It was just as she had predicted. Just as my brilliant, beautiful Cassandra had planned. Ryan was walking right into the fire, holding a gasoline can in one hand and a lit match in the other. I hung up the phone. I stared at the black screen. I listened to the quiet ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. The next hour was the strangest of my life. I was no longer grieving. I was preparing for battle. I showered. I shaved. I put on a clean-pressed shirt. I was the man Cassie had married, not the broken widower Ryan thought I was. At 7 o'clock on the dot, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, slumped my shoulders, and practiced the slow, shuffling walk I had adopted in my grief. I was the confused, sad old man again. I opened the door. There they were. Ryan was standing there, his face a perfect mask, of filial concern. And Megan was beside him, practically vibrating. She was failing miserably at hiding her excitement. Her eyes were too wide, her smile too bright and brittle. She was holding an aluminum tray covered in foil. "Dad," Ryan said, stepping in and giving me a one-armed hug. "How are you? You holding up?" "Oh, Leo, you poor thing," Megan cooed, sweeping past me into the foyer. The smell of store-bought lasagna, the expensive kind, from the gourmet market, not the kind she would ever make, wafted into the hall. "Ryan told me you had such a shocking day. We brought dinner. You can't be expected to cook after all this excitement." She patted my arm. It wasn't a comforting gesture. It was a pat like one you'd give a dog or a child. I'm still shaking, son," I said, my voice trembling just the right amount. I let my eyes look distant and haunted. I can't make sense of it. All that money, just sitting there. Where did it even come from? I led them into the living room, and there on the polished surface of the coffee table was Cassie's old mahogany jewelry box. I had deliberately left the lid slightly ajar. Ryan's eyes locked onto that box. His mask of concern vaporized for half a second. I saw it. It was an animal look. It was predatory. It was the look of a wolf that had just seen a three-legged rabbit. He saw the corner of the navy blue debit card peeking out from the velvet lining. "Well, let's not worry about that right now," Megan trilled, already moving toward the kitchen. "Let's eat first. I'll just heat this up. You two sit." She was trying to create a sense of normalcy, a casual family dinner, but her hands were shaking. She was high on the prospect of the money. Ryan didn't move. He kept staring at the box. "Dad," he said, his voice low and serious. You really shouldn't just leave that sitting out in the open. It's not safe." He walked over and picked up the card, holding it between his thumb and forefinger, as if it were a winning lottery ticket. He looked at my name embossed right there next to Cassie's. This is a major financial instrument, Dad," he said, his voice heavy with false authority. "You need to give this to me. I'll put it in my safe at my house tonight, just for security. I'll start making the calls tomorrow." He was trying to take it, right then and there. This was the moment. This was the part of the script Cassie had underlined 3 times. I had to force his hand. I had to make him believe he had no time. I did exactly what she told me to do. I waved my hand dismissively, acting relieved but naive. "Oh," I said, as if he were being silly. "Oh no, son, that's too much trouble. It's fine. It's perfectly safe here. I'll lock it in my desk tonight." I gently took the card from his hand. I actually felt the resistance in his fingers. He did not want to let it go. I placed it back in the box and closed the lid with a soft, final click. "Besides," I added as casually as I could, "it's all handled. I felt so overwhelmed after our call, I did something smart. I called Garrett Shaw's office." The change in Ryan's face was instantaneous. It was like watching a light switch get flipped off. The blood drained from his face. His fake smile froze and crumbled. "You... what?" he stammered. "You called Garrett?" "Yes," I said, acting proud of myself. "I left him a long message on his private voicemail. I'm going to call him first thing tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. I'll just take the box straight to his office and let him handle it. He'll know what to do about the IRS, right? He'll know about the taxes and all that legal stuff. He's the lawyer. He'll sort it all out." I saw Ryan swallow. Hard. I saw the pure, unadulterated panic flash in his eyes. He shot a desperate look toward Megan in the kitchen. Garrett. The one person he couldn't manipulate. The one person besides Cassie who knew exactly who he was. If Garrett Shaw got his hands on that card tomorrow morning, the game was over. Ryan's access was gone forever. That sweet, easy $100,000 would be locked away in probate or another impenetrable trust before lunch. He knew in that instant that he didn't have until tomorrow. He had to act tonight. His fake smile snapped back into place, but it was strained now, brittle. "Oh, Garrett. Right. Yeah, Dad. That's smart. A really good idea." I smiled back the picture of the clueless old man who'd just done something clever. "See, I'm not completely senile yet," I joked. "Now let's eat. I'm starving. That lasagna smells, well, it smells expensive." I turned and walked slowly toward the kitchen. As I did, I accidentally fumbled with the jewelry box. "Oh goodness, silly me," I mumbled, and I set the box back down on the coffee table, right in the open. "I'll just put this away after dinner. No rush." I walked out of the room. I left the box, the card, and the $100,000 bait sitting right there in the living room, completely unattended. I left my son alone with a choice I already knew he had made. The lasagna was acceptable, for a store-bought brick of cheese and pasta anyway. I pushed it around my plate, acting the part of the grieving widower with no appetite. Ryan and Megan, on the other hand, ate like they hadn't seen food in a month. They were buzzing. The energy coming off them was electric, a frantic, vibrating hum of pure, uncut greed. They kept shooting each other quick, excited little glances over the rims of their wine glasses. They were two hyenas who had just cornered a wounded animal. Miss Megan dutifully cleared the plates, her hands shaking just slightly. "More wine, Leo," she trilled, her voice an octave too high. "Oh no, dear," I mumbled. I think I've had enough excitement for one day." Ryan guided me. He physically put his hand on my arm and guided me like I was an invalid back into the living room. "Here, Dad. Sit down. Relax. I'll get the coffee." No coffee for me, son," I said, my voice thick. I'm just so tired. All this confusion with the money, it's a lot." I made a show of looking right at the mahogany jewelry box. It was still sitting on the coffee table right where I had left it. It was the only thing in the room that mattered. It was a loaded gun, and I was just waiting for one of them to pick it up. Ryan's eyes darted to it. "Yeah, Dad, we'll talk about that in the morning. No need for you to worry your head about it tonight. We'll call Garrett together." He was lying, and he knew I knew he was lying, but we were locked in this strange, silent dance. I settled deep into my big, worn leather armchair. My spot. Cassie had bought it for me after we signed our first major logistics contract. "You need a throne, Leo," she'd said. It was positioned perfectly. It faced the dark television, and its high back and wings meant that from the sofa, they could see my legs and the top of my head, but they couldn't clearly see my face. They would have to trust that I was asleep. I let out a long, shuddering sigh. The sigh of a 70-year-old man who was completely overwhelmed by life. I think I'm just going to rest my eyes for a minute before I head up to bed," I mumbled, letting my voice trail off. Just a minute." I let my head loll to the side, my mouth falling open just a fraction. I closed my eyes. The only sound in the room was the heavy rhythmic tick, tock, tick, tock of the grandfather clock in the hall. It was the clock Cassie's father had given us. It sounded like a bomb counting down. I focused on my breathing. In, out, slow, heavy. I waited 5 full minutes. 5 minutes of that pressurized, agonizing silence. Then I started the snore. It wasn't a loud, obnoxious snore. It was a soft, wet, fluttering sound deep in my chest. The kind of rattling breath of a man in a dead, exhausted sleep. "Herk! Bow!" I heard a whisper. It was Megan. Her voice was a sharp, hissing S. Is he asleep?" Silence. Wait, Ryan whispered back. His voice was tense. Just give it another minute. Wait. Tick, tock, tick, tock. I continued the rhythm. Phew. I let a little whistle come out on the exhale. I was acting for my life. I was acting for Cassie's legacy. Another 5 minutes crawled by. The tension in the room was so thick I could almost taste it, metallic and sharp like an old penny. He's out, Ryan whispered. This time his voice was firm, decisive. He's completely gone. He sleeps like a rock. Finding that card, it was too much for the old man. Clueless old man. The words echoed in my head. Okay, Megan whispered. Are you sure, Ryan? What if he wakes up? He won't, Ryan said, his voice hard. He won't, and we can't wait. We are not letting that shark Garrett Shaw get his hands on this in the morning. This is ours, Megan. Mom owed us this. I heard the soft cushion of a body rising from the sofa. My heart was a drum against my ribs. Don't move. Don't flinch. Don't stop snoring. I heard a single soft footstep on the hardwood floor. Then another. He was standing right over me. I could feel his presence. I could smell the faint, bitter scent of the wine on his breath. He was standing there watching me, testing me. One false move, one flicker of my eyelids, I forced another snore out, making it sound broken like I was choking on it. He was satisfied. He turned away. I heard him take 2 steps toward the coffee table, and then I heard it. It wasn't a loud sound, but in the dead silence of that room, it was a gunshot. It was the delicate wooden click of the antique brass latch on Cassie's mahogany jewelry box. He had opened it. That wooden click of the jewelry box latch was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I kept my body perfectly still. I forced the air from my lungs in another rattling wet snore. I heard the almost undetectable shing of the plastic debit card sliding out of the velvet lining. He had it. I didn't open my eyes. I didn't dare. I couldn't risk a single muscle twitch. I heard the soft thud of the mahogany lid being closed. Footsteps quiet, moving away from me back toward the sofa. The leather cushion sighed as he sat down. I could picture him perfectly. Sitting there in the semi-darkness, the light from the kitchen casting long shadows across the room. Just holding it. Holding that little rectangle of plastic. Holding $101,000. I could feel the heat of his greed, the frantic buzzing energy of it from across the room. Well, it was Megan's voice. A sharp, impatient hiss from the kitchen doorway. She was a terrible conspirator. Too nervous. Too eager. Did you get it? Shh, Ryan hissed back. His voice was a low growl of command. I heard the cushion sigh again as he stood up. His footsteps were measured, not panicked. He was in control. He walked decisively out of the living room and into the kitchen. The light from the hallway, which had been cutting a sharp line across the Persian rug, vanished as he turned the corner. This was my chance. Slowly, carefully, millimeter by millimeter, I opened my left eye. Just a crack. Just enough to see. My armchair was angled perfectly. I could see them. Their backs were to me. They were huddled near the kitchen island, their heads bowed close together, illuminated only by the dim yellow light from the stove hood. They were hidden from the front windows, hidden from the street. They thought they were perfectly safe. They thought they were brilliant. I held my breath, stopping the snore. I strained every nerve, every fiber of my 70-year-old body to listen. Their voices were the sound of snakes rustling in dry leaves. Low, urgent, and full of venom. I got it, Ryan whispered. I could hear the smile in his voice, the sheer, unadulterated triumph. It was right there. He didn't even put it away. Just like you said, he's lost his mind. He didn't wake up. He didn't move. Megan's voice was trembling, a mixture of terror and exhilaration. Slept right through it, like a baby, Ryan scoffed. God, he's so clueless. Okay. Megan stammered, her voice frantic. The PIN. Are you sure about the PIN? You're absolutely sure, 6 digits. Ryan, what if you're wrong? What if it's not that? What if it locks us out? Of course I'm sure. The contempt in his voice was chilling. It was the sound of a man who had been waiting his whole life to feel superior to someone. The clueless old man thinks her most important day was marrying him, Ryan whispered, dripping with scorn. 0518, May 18th. How pathetic. He forgets Mom hated being just a wife. He forgets she despised being a homemaker. Her real life, her real anniversary. The one she actually framed and put on her desk in the office, the day she incorporated Hayes Logistics. September 22nd, 1988. 0, 9, 2, 2, 8. 8, Megan repeated as if tasting the numbers. Exactly, Ryan said. 092288. It's 6 digits. It's poetic. It's her. He would never ever think of it. He's too busy mourning the loving wife to remember the ruthless CEO she actually was. I had to clench my jaw to keep from smiling. He's right, I thought. He is smart. Just like she said. He's arrogant and lazy. But he's smart. He's smart enough to figure out the puzzle. And just greedy enough to spring the trap. Oh my God. Ryan. Megan's voice was suddenly breathless. The reality was hitting her. $100,000. Just sitting there. We can pay off the credit cards. The ones you maxed out. We can pay off the lease on the BMW. We can finally breathe. Breathe, forget breathing, babe, Ryan said, his voice low and intense. We can live. And this is just the start. This is just the seed money. The old man is sitting on millions, and he just proved he's too far gone to manage it. Once we use this to get clear, then we can start the real plan. This is just a taste. Ryan, $100,000. Megan was almost giggling now, a hysterical giddy sound. We can go to Cabo next week. Just get away from him. Shh, shut up. Ryan snapped, his voice suddenly all business. Not Cabo, not yet. We have to be smart. And we have to be fast. He said he's calling Garrett at 9 a.m. tomorrow. That gives us about 12 hours before that lawyer locks this account down forever. We have to move now. Tonight. Now, but how? Megan sounded panicked again. The ATMs. They all have limits, Ryan. A $500 limit. It'll take us weeks. Not this one, Ryan said, and I could hear the pride in his voice, the thrill of his own cleverness. Not this bank. National Commerce is a private bank for high-net-worth clients. Their main branch, the one in the South Park Mall, has a 24-hour private lobby, ATM. And you know what? It doesn't have a daily withdrawal limit. You can take out the entire account balance in one single transaction. Bingo. Cassie. My God. She was magnificent. She had even known which bank, which branch, which machine he would try. She had anticipated everything. Are you sure? Megan whispered. Is that even legal? Who cares if it's legal? It's our money, Ryan hissed. Mom owed it to us. After all those years she spent building that company, instead of raising me, she owed us. Now go. Take my car. The keys are in your purse. Go to the South Park branch now. Put the card in. 092288. Select withdrawal. Select other amount. Type in 101450. Take the cash, all of it. Put it in the duffel bag in the trunk. Do not come back here. Go straight home. I'll stay here for another hour, pretend to watch TV, and then I'll leave. He'll never even know the card is gone until morning. By then the money's gone and it's just his word against ours. He'll probably just think he lost the card in his senile confusion. Okay, I'm going. I heard her quick, light footsteps, the soft squeak of the back door opening, the heavy insulated thud as it closed, sealing her fate. She was gone. Ryan was quiet for a long, long moment. I heard him take a single deep, satisfied breath. He walked back into the living room. I snapped my eyes shut immediately. I forced my breathing back into the broken rhythm. He walked over to the coffee table. I heard the soft wooden click of the empty jewelry box being closed. He was putting it back, wiping away his fingerprints, no doubt, making it look untouched. Then he crossed the room and sat heavily on the sofa. I heard the click of the TV remote. The low, tinny sound of some late-night talk show host telling a joke filled the silence. He sat there. My son. He sat there 10 feet away from me, calmly watching television, acting as my protector, my guardian, while his wife was driving across town to steal $100,000 from an account set up by his dead mother. He thought he was the smartest man in the world. He thought he had finally outsmarted Cassie. He thought he had just won. I kept my eyes closed. I kept my breathing steady. And in the darkness behind my closed eyelids, I smiled. The grandfather clock in the hall began to chime. Bong, bong, bong. It struck 9 o'clock. The curtain was up. The final act had begun. Now, we wait. I kept my eyes closed. I kept my breathing steady. Out. This was the hardest part. The waiting. The silence in the room was a lie. It was loud. It was screaming. The only real sounds were the low murmur of the television Ryan had turned on and the heavy, accusing tick, tock, tick, tock of the grandfather clock in the hall. Cassie's clock. I could hear Ryan. He wasn't watching the talk show. He was vibrating. I heard the tap, tap, tap of his fingers on the arm of the sofa, a fast, impatient rhythm. He'd tap for 10 seconds, stop, then start again. Tap, 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 tap. He was a bundle of raw, exposed nerves. He was a thief waiting for his partner to get back from the bank. I focused on the performance. I was a 70-year-old man, exhausted by grief and confusion, asleep in his chair. I let my jaw go slack. I forced another rattling snore. It was an act of pure will. Every instinct in my body wanted to sit up, to look at him, to shout, "I know what you did." But Cassie's voice was in my head. "Not yet, Leo. Let him hang himself." The tap-tap-tapping of his fingers, it reminded me of something. A different, nervous tapping. Ryan. He must have been 10 years old. I'd just gotten home from a long haul to Chicago. I went to my wallet to give my housekeeper her pay, and I was short. $20. Just a 20. I wasn't angry. I was confused. I asked Ryan about it. I don't know, Dad," he'd said, his eyes wide and innocent. But Billy from next door was over. He was in your room. He said he was just looking at your model trucks." He cried. He was so convincing. He blamed his best friend. I almost believed him. I was ready to go next door and have a quiet word with Billy's father. But Cassie just stood there, her arms crossed. She watched Ryan cry for a full minute. Then she said, "Billy wasn't here. He's at his grandmother's in Raleigh. I just spoke to his mother." The blood drained from Ryan's face. Cassie just looked at him. She didn't yell, she just waited. Then she walked up to his room. She didn't ransack it. She walked straight to his closet, picked up his new Nike sneakers, the ones he'd begged for, and pulled out the insole. And there it was. The $20 bill folded into a neat little square. I wanted to let it go. It was just $20, but Cassie made him walk next door that night. She made him stand on the porch and apologize to Billy's parents for planning to blame their son. It was the most humiliated I'd ever seen him. When we got home, I had told her she'd been too hard on him. She turned to me, her eyes flashing. "Don't you ever let him get away with it, Leo," she said, her voice low and furious. "He takes the easy path. He lied before he even tried to tell the truth. Your kindness, he won't see it as love. He'll see it as weakness. And one day, weakness is what will destroy him." Tap, 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 tap. He was still tapping. She was right. She had been right for 30 years. My kindness was his weakness. And tonight, I was not going to be kind. I was going to be Cassie. I heard the sofa cushion groan as Ryan stood up. His patience was gone. I heard his footsteps on the rug, pacing, back and forth. Tick, tock. He paced for a minute. Then the footsteps stopped. He was standing over me again. I could feel his shadow. I could feel his eyes boring into my face, trying to see if I was faking. I let out my loudest snore, yet a real window rattler. I even put a little whistle in it. He must have been satisfied. He backed away. I heard him mutter under his breath, a low, angry hiss. "What is taking her so long? It's been 30 minutes. He paced back to the sofa. He sat down. He stood up again. He was unraveling. The grandfather clock in the hall began to chime the half hour. 9:30. Then the minutes ticked by. 9:35. 9:38. 9:39. The tap-tap-tapping was frantic now. Bong. The clock struck 9:40 p.m. 40 minutes had passed. The grandfather clock in the hall finished its heavy 9:40 chime. Bong! The sound died, leaving a silence that felt heavy like a wool blanket. I could hear Ryan's breathing. It was fast and shallow. He was pacing. Tap, tap, tap on the hardwood, thud, thud on the rug. "Come on, Megan, come on, come on!" He was whispering a frantic prayer to his own greed. And then it happened. Bzzz. The sound was an explosion in the dead quiet room. It wasn't a polite ringtone. It was a harsh, angry, frantic vibration. His phone lying on the dark wood of the coffee table was rattling against the surface. It sounded like an electric shock. I heard Ryan let out a choked animal sound like a yelp. I heard the scrape of his loafers on the floor, a thud, as his knees or shins slammed hard into the edge of the coffee table. He didn't just reach for the phone. He lunged for it, nearly knocking over the lamp. Silence. The low murmur of the forgotten TV. He had the phone. I waited. 1 beat. 2. What? It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't a word. It was a sound of pure, sudden terror. It was a full-throated, high-pitched shout that cracked in the middle. He had completely forgotten I was in the room. He had forgotten everything but the bright screen in his hands. "No, no! No, no, no!" That was my cue. The performance of my life. I exploded from the chair. I made it look like a heart attack, a genuine terrifying jolt from a deep sleep. "Ha! What?" I gasped, my hand clutching my chest. I knocked over the empty water glass on my side table, making it clatter to the floor. "Ryan." "What is it? What's going on? My God, you scared me half to death. What's all the shouting?" I blinked, rubbing my eyes, playing the disoriented old man perfectly. "What? What time is it?" Ryan wasn't looking at me. He was standing in the middle of the living room, frozen, illuminated only by the blue light of the television and the brighter, deadlier white light of his phone. He was a statue of pure panic. His face, my God, his face. It was a mask of waxy, grayish white. His mouth was hanging open. His eyes were wide and unblinking. He was shaking so violently that the phone was vibrating in his two-handed grip. "Ryan," I said again, my voice trembling for real this time, though not with fear, with victory. I shuffled towards him, one hand still on my chest. Son, what is it? Is it Megan? Was there an accident? Is she okay? He didn't seem to hear me. He was just staring at the screen. He looked like a man who had just opened a door and found a firing squad on the other side. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost. He looked like he'd just seen Cassie. She, he stammered. He tried to speak, but only a dry, clicking sound came out. It's a... What, Ryan? What is it? Let me see, I said, grabbing his arm. The frightened father taking charge. He didn't resist. His arms were locked rigid. He didn't even try to hide the screen from me. He was too far gone. I leaned in. My eyes, even at 70, were sharp. I read the text message that had just detonated his entire life. It was from Megan. It was a wall of frantic capitalized text. A digital scream. Babe, Ryan, it's a trap. It was a trap. Your mom knew everything the second I put the pin in the doors. Lock the bank doors. I'm locked in the ATM lobby. The card is gone. It ate the card. Ryan, I'm being detained. The alarm is going off. The cops are here. I can see the blue lights. Ryan, the cops are here. Oh my God, what do I do? I read it. I read it twice just to savor it. The door's locked. My God. Cassie, you magnificent woman. You didn't just flag the account. You turned the ATM into a jail. I slowly looked up from the screen to my son's face. He was finally looking at me, his eyes vacant, begging. He was a terrified little boy again, caught with his hand in the cookie jar. I let my own face fall, playing my part to the very end. I let my eyes widen with confusion and fear. Ryan, I whispered, my voice shaking. What? What does she mean? A trap. What does she mean? Your mom knew everything. Ryan, I asked again, my voice dripping with false confusion. What? What does she mean? A trap. What does she mean? Your mom knew everything. He didn't answer me. He didn't even see me. His eyes were glued to Megan's frantic all-caps text. He was operating on pure animal panic, his thumb shaking so violently it looked like it was vibrating, stabbed at his phone screen. He wasn't texting back. He was trying to call her. Damn it! Damn it! Pick up Megan, he hissed, pressing the phone to his ear so hard his knuckles turned white. He paced in a tight, frantic circle in the middle of the living room, his new $15,000 watch catching the light. Pick up. I could hear the faint, desperate ring. Ring from the earpiece, even from my chair. Of course she wasn't going to answer. She was, as Cassie would have put it, indisposed. She was a little busy being detained in a bank lobby. She's not answering, he snarled, turning on me as if I were somehow to blame for this. Why isn't she answering the phone? Maybe she's talking to the police. I offered, my voice trembling with beautifully crafted artificial fear. Before he could respond to that, the phone in his hand chimed again. A loud, sharp bing. A different sound. A new text message had arrived immediately, taking over his call screen. He froze. He just stopped pacing. He stared at the new message. I watched his face. If the first text from Megan had turned him white with panic, this one did something else. It turned him to stone. The color didn't just drain from his face. It looked like it was vacuumed out, leaving behind a waxy, grayish-yellow mask. He wasn't just scared anymore. He looked hollowed out. He looked like he had just read his own obituary. He read the message once, his eyes scanning rapidly. He read it a second time, his mouth falling open, a small choked sound escaping his throat. What is it, son? I asked, shuffling closer, playing the concerned father. Is that from Megan again? Is she okay? He didn't respond. He didn't move. He just lowered the phone, his arm falling limply to his side as if the weight of it was too much. The screen was still lit bright and accusing in the dim room. "Ryan," I snapped, letting a little of my real authority bleed into my voice. "What does it say?" He still didn't speak. He just held the phone out to me. His hand was shaking so badly, I had to steady it with my own to read the screen. It wasn't from Megan. The sender ID just said G. Shaw, a number he didn't have saved in his contacts. But I knew that number. Oh, I knew that number. It was Garrett. Cassie's lawyer. Cassie's friend. Cassie's enforcer. I took the phone from his limp fingers. I read the message aloud, my voice slow and steady. "Ryan." I looked at him. He flinched at the sound of his own name. "This is Garrett Shaw," I continued, "your mother's attorney. I am writing to inform you that your wife Megan Hayes has been detained by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. She is currently in custody at the National Commerce Bank South Park branch on suspicion of attempted grand theft and wire fraud." "Detained. Suspicion," Ryan mumbled, shaking his head. It's just a misunderstanding. We can fix this." "I'm not finished, Ryan," I said, my voice hardening. The old man was evaporating. I kept reading. "This is not a misunderstanding. The account she attempted to access, account number 774-09B, was a sting account established by the late Cassandra Hayes and placed under special surveillance. This account was created, and I quote, for the sole purpose of identifying and prosecuting unauthorized access." Ryan's knees buckled. He grabbed the back of the sofa to hold himself up. No, she wouldn't do that." "He's still talking, Ryan," I said, my voice cold. I read the final devastating lines. "The PIN you provided to your wife was, as Cassandra predicted, correct. Upon entry of that specific PIN, the ATM lobby doors were magnetically locked. The card was retained by the machine, and local law enforcement, who were already on standby with bank security, were dispatched. They were waiting for her. All video and audio of the entire transaction have been captured and forwarded to my office and the district attorney. We have everything. Have a pleasant evening." Click. The phone in my hand, his phone slipped from his fingers. It clattered onto the hardwood floor. He didn't notice. He didn't care. He just stared at the spot on the wall where Cassie's portrait used to hang before he'd convinced me to put it away because it made me sad. She locked the doors," he whispered. It was that one detail. That was the detail that broke him. The sheer cold, calculated brilliance of it. The theatrics. She knew," he whispered, his voice cracking. She knew I'd try the company anniversary. September 22nd, 88. She knew you, Ryan," I said. He stumbled backward as if I had physically shoved him. He hit the heavy mahogany bookshelf, rattling a row of Cassie's old law books. No, this is your fault." He suddenly spat, pointing a shaking finger at me. You set me up. You and that lawyer, you put that card out. You tricked me." I just looked at him. I stood up straight. I wasn't the clueless old man anymore. I wasn't the stooped, grieving widower. I was Leonard Hayes, the man who had co-founded this company. I was Cassandra's husband. I took one slow step toward him. He actually recoiled, flattening himself against the bookshelf. He was finally seeing me for the first time in 13 months. "Me, Ryan," I said, my voice quiet, but it cut through the room like a razor. "I'm the one who's been siphoning money from my grieving father's accounts for the last year. I'm the one who bought a $15,000 watch with a fake management fee. I'm the one who illegally forwarded my father's federal mail to my own house to make him think he was senile. His face absolutely crumbled. I, I, I didn't do anything, son, I said, taking another step. He looked like a cornered rat. I just sat in that chair. I just slept. I looked at him, my son, this weak, pathetic 40-year-old stranger who had been raised in my house. She did this, Ryan, I said, my voice as cold as the ice in my veins. She did this a year ago. She's been dead for 13 months, and she still just caught you red-handed. I let the full, impossible weight of that statement hit him. He had been outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and utterly destroyed by a woman who was already in her grave. Mom she wouldn't do that, he sobbed, sliding down the bookshelf to sit in a heap on the floor, his head in his hands. She wouldn't. She loved me. She loved you, I agreed, looking down at the broken man at my feet. She loved you enough to know exactly who you were. She loved you enough to stop you. I stood over him, my hands clasped behind my back. The performance was over. She prepared everything, Ryan, I said. She knew everything. And this was just the test. He looked up at me, his face a mess of tears and confusion. Test what? What do you mean, test? I just stared at him. You thought this was about the $100,000? You thought that was the big score? I let out a short, harsh laugh. Oh, Ryan, you really are a fool. This was never about the money in that account. This was about everything else. He looked up from the floor, his face a grotesque mask of tears and snot. The confusion that had frozen him was instantly replaced by a different, sharper energy, rage. He scrambled to his feet, a cornered animal, and his shaking finger wasn't begging anymore. It was accusing. You, he spat, his voice tearing. This was you. You knew. You sat there. You pretended to be asleep. You snored. You let her walk into that. You set me up. You set us up. I just stood there, my hands clasped behind my back. I let his hysterical tantrum echo in the quiet room. It was the same tantrum he'd thrown at 10 years old when Cassie found the stolen $20 in his sneaker. The same desperate, childish denial. Me, Ryan, I said, and my voice was dangerously quiet. It was the voice Cassie used to use, the one that meant the discussion was over. You think I had the brains to orchestrate this? You think I'm the strategist in this family? I let out a short, harsh laugh. It was a sound he had never heard from me before. You really are a fool. I let that hang in the air. No, son, I said, walking slowly, deliberately toward my desk. I didn't set you up. Your mother did. I just followed her instructions. I played my part. I was the clueless old man she needed me to be. He was trembling, shaking his head, trying to process the impossible. But she's dead. And she's still smarter than you, I said, turning to face him. You think this mess tonight? I gestured toward his fallen phone, the one still glowing with Garrett's message. You think this was the plan? You think this was about $100,000? Oh, Ryan. He flinched. He still didn't understand. That $100,000, I said, my voice dripping with the scorn he had shown me. That was just the appetizer. That was the bait. That was just the confirmation. That, son, was your final exam. He was pale, confused. What are you talking about, final exam? A loyalty test. I snapped, my own anger cold and sharp, finally breaking the surface. A final, simple pass-fail test. She left that money out in the open. She dared you. She was praying that her son, the son she loved, wasn't the weak, greedy, spineless disappointment she feared he was. She gave you one last chance, Ryan. One last chance to see $100,000 sitting on a table, to know that I was calling the lawyer in the morning, and to do the right thing. To just walk away. And you failed, I roared, slamming my flat palm down on the heavy oak desk. The sound was like a gunshot in the silent house. Ryan physically jumped. You failed miserably. You failed immediately. You didn't even hesitate. You called your own father a clueless old man and sent your wife out to steal from your dead mother's account before my chair was even cold. You proved to her and to me exactly who you are. When he backed away, his hands raised as if to ward off a blow. What? What does that mean? What are you going to do? Me, I'm not doing anything, I said. It's already been done. The $100,000 trap wasn't the plan, Ryan. It was just the trigger. It was the final piece of evidence Cassandra needed. He was completely lost. Evidence for what? You think your mother spent her last year of life, the year she knew she was doomed, just to set up a clever little sting operation at an ATM. You really don't know her at all, do you? I walked past him. I went to the locked bottom drawer of my desk, the one he thought just held old tax returns. I unlocked it. I pulled out a thick, heavy spiral-bound binder. It was 3 inches thick with a plain black cover. I walked back to the coffee table and dropped it. The thud was heavy final. Your mother didn't just suspect you were a thief, Ryan, I said, my voice low. She knew. She didn't spend her last 6 months in peace resting. She spent them hiring a private forensic accounting firm from New York. She spent them doing a deep, secret, brutal audit of every single thing you have managed for this family since the day she got sick. Ryan's face was ashen. He stared at the binder as if it were a snake. An audit? What did they find? Everything, I said. They found everything, Ryan. The $100,000 trap tonight, that was just to prove your intent to commit a crime. To prove it to me. To prove it to a jury. To show exactly what you would do if you thought you could get away with it. I tapped the thick black binder with one finger. This is the crime, Ryan. Your real crime. The crime you've been committing for the last 13 months, while I was grieving, while I was supposedly too lost to notice, while you were patting me on the back, calling me Dad, and telling me you were taking care of everything. He was shaking his head, backing away again, muttering, No, I just borrowed a little here and there. A little, I yelled. I was done being quiet. A little! I ripped the binder open to the first tabbed page. You think tonight was the big score? You think you're smart? You're just a common sloppy thief. You failed the test, Ryan. You failed it. And now you're going to see exactly what happens when you fail Cassandra Hayes' final exam. He looked at the open binder, his eyes wide with a new dawning, sickening horror. He finally understood. The $100,000 theft wasn't the trap. It was the thing that sprung the real trap. What is in there? He whispered, his voice barely audible, desperate. What crime? I don't know what you're talking about. I let out a short, harsh laugh. That cold sound. It felt foreign coming from my own throat. You don't know what I'm talking about, I repeated. I walked over to the coffee table, to the thick, black 3-inch binder that held his entire pathetic criminal career. I didn't open it. Not yet. I just tapped the cover. You really thought this was about tonight, Ryan. You thought the $100,000 was the crime, oh son. You really are a fool. Tonight was just the confirmation. Tonight was just you, in a single stupid, greedy moment, proving to me and to a court of law exactly what kind of man you are. I tapped the binder again harder. This is the record. This is the proof. This is your career as a thief spanning the last 13 months, starting almost to the day your mother died. He scrambled to his feet, his face a mask of disbelief and dawning terror. I don't... That's crazy. I made one mistake tonight. I was desperate, Megan. She was scared. One mistake, I snapped. The clueless old man was gone. The man who built a $90 million company with his bare hands was standing in his place. This wasn't one mistake. This was a strategy. This was a systematic draining of your grieving father's accounts day after day, week after week, all while you looked me in the eye and told me my memory was failing. I ripped the binder open. The pages were crisp, filled with spreadsheets, bank records, and copies of wire transfers. Cassie's accountants from New York were brutally efficient. You want to know your crime, Ryan? Let's review your work. I flipped to the first tab. Let's start with your first test run. $5,000. Paid to R&M Creative Solutions. Your own shell company. Ryan and Megan. How unoriginal. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize your and Megan's initials? That was your property tax lie. His face went chalk white. He knew I had him. That was the first thread. Now I was going to pull it until his whole life unraveled. But you got away with that one, didn't you? I continued, my voice cold, relentless. I played the senile old man, so you got bolder, you got arrogant. Let's turn to page 4. Ah, yes, my favorite, the $15,000 management fee. The hot stock you flipped. What a brilliant story, son. Except my portfolio is 90% municipal bonds. It hasn't seen a hot stock since 1999. You just transferred the money. You bought a watch, a $15,000 monument to your own stupidity. I was going to pay it back, he whimpered, his voice cracking. Pay it back with what? I spat. With this. I flipped to the next tab. Page 10, $8,000, a single direct wire transfer, to a high-end designer boutique, Megan's new handbag, the one she wore here last week. You paid for it directly from my retirement fund, a fund your mother set up to make sure I would be okay after she was gone. But that's all just pocket money, isn't it, Ryan? I said, my voice dropping. That's just you and your wife stealing trinkets. The real sickness, the core of it, is this. I flipped to the last section. It was a stack of pages. Dozens of small, repeating transactions. $21,000, Ryan. Transferred over 6 months. In small $300 increments to an offshore online gambling account. An account in your name. You were stealing from your father's grief to bet on football games. He looked like he was going to be sick. And then, I said, finally closing the binder with a heavy final thud, then you just got sloppy. You didn't even bother with shell companies or fake management fees anymore. You just took $38,400 in miscellaneous cash withdrawals, ATM fees from my account, consulting charges, travel expenses. Did you think I wouldn't add it all up? Did you think I was too stupid to do basic math? I stood there watching him. You failed the test tonight, Ryan. The $100,000 test. But this binder, this shows what you've already stolen. $87,400. Gone. Taken by my only son. Stolen from me while I mourned your mother. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by Ryan's ragged, shuddering breaths. I looked at him. The rage was gone, replaced by a deep, aching, bottomless void. Why? I asked. It was the only question that mattered. Why, Ryan, we gave you everything. We paid for your college. We funded 3 of your failed companies. We gave you a life your mother and I only dreamed of. Why? Why would you do this? That was the question that broke him. Not the numbers, not the threat of jail, but the why. He didn't just stumble. He collapsed. He slid down the wall, his legs giving out, and landed in a heap on the floor, right by the bookshelf. He put his head in his hands, and a sound came out of him. A horrible, broken, wailing sob. It wasn't the cry of a man. It was the cry of a terrified child. I I didn't mean to. He wept, his shoulders shaking. I lost it. I lost it all. Lost what? I asked, my voice cold. The money, the gambling, he choked out. I owed $200,000. They were going to break my legs, Dad. They were threatening Megan. And there it was. The excuse, the shift. And Megan, he sobbed. She kept saying, he owes us, Ryan, he owes us. Your mother spent your whole life choosing that stupid company over you. It's our money, he's just an old man, he won't even notice. She pushed me every day. He looked up at me, his face a pathetic mess of tears and desperation. It was the same face, the exact same face of the 10-year-old boy caught with the $20 in his shoe. I just needed to get clear, he whispered, his voice raw. I just needed a little more to win it all back. I thought you were just so sad, so lost. I thought you were grieving Mom so much. I thought you were too clueless to ever check. I swear, Dad, I was going to pay it all back. Someday. Someday, I repeated. The word felt like acid on my tongue. He still didn't get it. He still thought this was about money. He still thought he could pay it back. I stood over him. My son, this stranger on my floor. You were wrong, Ryan, I said, my voice flat, devoid of all emotion. You were wrong about everything. You were wrong about me. You were wrong about your mother, and you were wrong about what happens next. I turned and walked to the phone, picking it up from the floor where he had dropped it. He was still sobbing, waiting for me to comfort him, to forgive him, to make it all go away like I always had. Now, I said, turning back to him, we're going to talk about what happens to you. I looked down at the pathetic wreck on my floor. This 40-year-old man, my son, sobbing like a child. He was waiting for me to fix it. He was waiting for Dad to make the bad things go away. Just like I always had. Just like when he wrecked his first car. Just like when he failed out of his first semester at college. Just like when Cassie found that $20 in his shoe. He was waiting for me to be weak. What about Megan? He choked out, wiping his face on the sleeve of his expensive shirt. The cops, they have her. You have to call them, tell them it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Tell them you gave her the card. Tell them it was a test. I almost laughed. The audacity. Even now, his first instinct was to lie, to ask me to commit a crime, to file a false report, to save her. Megan, I said, my voice flat. Megan made her choice the second she put that card in that machine. She is an adult. She is a thief. She will face criminal charges, and I will not be interfering. That is her fate. His eyes widened in terror. The reality was setting in. This wasn't a family squabble. This was real. No, Dad, please. He scrambled forward on his knees, grabbing at the cuff of my pants. I instinctively stepped back, repulsed. Please, Dad, don't let them take me. The audit, the $87,000, I'll pay it back. I swear I'll get a job, I'll work, I'll do anything. Just please, don't send me to jail. Please, Dad, I'm begging you, don't call Garrett, don't call the police, I'll do anything. He was groveling. It was disgusting. He wasn't sorry for the theft. He was sorry he got caught. "You'll do anything?" I asked, my voice cold. "Yes. Yes, anything," he sobbed. "That's good," I said, "because your mother already knew you'd say that." He looked up confused. "What?" I ignored him. I walked away from him back to my desk. Behind the large painting of the North Carolina coast, Cassie's favorite was her private safe. Not the big one for the company, but her personal one. Ryan didn't even know it existed. I spun the dial. My fingers knew the combination by heart. Her birthday. 081450. The safe clicked open. Ryan had stopped sobbing. He was just watching me, breathing in short, sharp hitches. Inside the safe, past her jewelry and her own private documents, were 2 envelopes. 2 thick, cream-colored, identical envelopes sealed with the same red wax H as the box Garrett had given me. I pulled them out. I walked back and stood over him. "Your mother. She was a strategist, Ryan," I said. "She didn't just plan for your failure. She planned for your success, too. She always hoped she was wrong about you." I held up the first envelope. This was Plan A. This was the letter she left for you. If you had passed the test tonight, if you had seen the $100,000, if you had heard me say I was calling Garrett, and if you had just let it go, if you had proven just once that you were a better man than she thought. Ryan stared at that envelope, his eyes desperate. He was seeing his lost future. What does it say?" he whispered. Does it? "I don't know," I said. I looked at the fireplace. The embers from the logs I'd lit earlier were still glowing. And now, we never will. I walked over to the fireplace. I looked at the envelope one last time. This was the death of my hope. This was the final funeral. I didn't just toss it in. I placed it gently on the glowing coals. Ryan let out a sound. A strangled "no." We watched together as the corners curled, turned brown, and then the red wax seal melted and dripped like blood. The envelope ignited in a bright, clean white whoosh of flame. In 30 seconds, it was gray ash. The inheritance he might have had. The son he could have been. Gone forever. I turned back to him. He was staring at the fire, his face absolutely broken. "And then," I said, holding up the second envelope, "there is this one." I walked back to him. "This is Plan B. This is the letter she left. In case you failed. In case you proved beyond all doubt exactly who you are." His watery, terrified eyes met mine. I broke the wax seal. I unfolded the single sheet of thick, expensive paper. Cassie's handwriting was strong, angry. I read it aloud. My voice was the only sound in the room, clear and unforgiving. "Ryan, if you are reading this, it means you took the bait. It means you chose greed over family. It means you confirmed every fear I ever had about you. You are weak. You are a fool, and you are a thief. You have proven you are not my son." Ryan flinched, as if I'd struck him. "There will be no second chances," I continued reading. "There will be no forgiveness. You have made your choice. The Hayes legacy is not for you. You will not destroy what your father and I built." I finished the letter with her final brutal instructions. "Leo." I read my own voice steady. "Do not forgive him. Do not enable him. Protect our legacy. Protect yourself. Do what must be done." I folded the letter. I looked down at my son, a weeping, shattered man on my floor. He was looking up at me, his entire future hanging in the balance, his face a mask of pure terror. "Please," he whispered, his voice so quiet I could barely hear it. What did she want me to do?" My son was still on the floor, a weeping 40-year-old wreck looking up at me, his face pleading. What did she want me to do? What did she want? I repeated, my voice hard. She wanted me to protect the legacy. She wanted me to do what must be done. She wanted me to give you a choice, Ryan. He flinched, not understanding. A choice? Not a choice between right and wrong, son. It's far too late for that. She just wanted me to give you a choice between two different kinds of ruin. I walked away from him. I didn't go to my desk. I went to the heavy fireproof filing cabinet in the corner. The one he thought just held old, useless tax returns from the 1990s. I spun the combination lock. Garrett had delivered this packet to me 3 days ago after I'd shown him the audit binder. Cassie would want you to be prepared for the endgame, Leo, he'd said. I pulled out a thick, legal-sized envelope. I walked back and stood over my son. I didn't hand the documents to him. I dropped them. They landed on the Persian rug right in front of him, with a heavy final thud. What? What is this? He whimpered, flinching, as if I'd thrown a snake at him. That is your future, Ryan, I said, my voice flat, devoid of all emotion. Or what's left of it. Garrett prepared these, at my request based on your mother's final brutal audit. I pointed to the top document. It was 5 pages long, stapled neatly. This is a full legal confession. It details line by line every single dollar you just admitted to stealing. The $5,000 shell company, the $15,000 watch, the $8,000 handbag for your wife, the $21,000 in gambling debts, the $38,400 in cash withdrawals. It all adds up. $87,400. You will sign this document acknowledging the embezzlement, the fraud, and the dates you committed these felonies while I was grieving. His eyes went wide with pure animal terror. A confession, Dad. No, you. You can't. That's sending me to jail. You're sending me to jail. I'm not finished talking, I snapped. My voice cut through his panic and silenced him. I pointed to the second, much thicker document beneath it. And this is a legal agreement. It is an irrevocable, binding, and permanent waiver of all inheritance. It states that you, Ryan Hayes, forfeit any and all claims to the estate of Cassandra Hayes and the estate of Leonard Hayes. You give up your rights. You give up your shares in Hayes Logistics. You give up any claim to this house. You give up everything. You will not receive 1 single cent. Not now. Not when I die. Nothing. He was shaking his head, scrambling backward on his hands until he hit the leg of the sofa. No, you can't. That's my birthright. You can't just take that away. I'm not taking it, I said, my voice like ice. You spent it. You just cashed it out. I crouched down just as he had crouched over me in my chair when he thought I was asleep. I got right in his face. My voice dropped to a low, unforgiving whisper. Now here is the ultimatum, Ryan. Here is the deal. You sign both of those documents, right now. You sign the felony confession for the $87,000. You sign the waiver disinheriting yourself from millions. In exchange, I continued, I will not call the district attorney and hand him that black binder. I will not pursue criminal charges for the $87,000 you already stole. We will call that your inheritance, paid in full. An $87,000 advance on the fortune you just forfeited. That's the only thing you will ever get from this family, Ryan. Ever. But Megan, he sobbed, his mind racing. What about tonight? The cops. They have her. Megan, I said, standing up straight, is on her own. She is an adult. She is a thief. She got caught in a trap set for her. Her fate is up to the justice system. This deal, this one tiny microscopic chance at not going to prison yourself, is only for you. And it's only on the table for the next 5 minutes. He stared at me, his mind completely broken. You have 5 minutes, Ryan, I said, and I pulled out my phone and set a timer. You sign both. You admit what you did. You give up your inheritance. and you walk out of this house tonight with nothing but your freedom. Or you refuse, and I will pick up this phone right now, and I will call Garrett Shaw, and I will instruct him to drive to the police station tonight and add your name to Megan's charge sheet. Conspiracy to commit theft, wire fraud, embezzlement. That $87,000 audit binder, Ryan. It's a slam dunk. They will send you both to prison for years. 5 minutes. Your choice. Your inheritance or your freedom. I just stood there, silent. I watched him. The only sound in the room was the quiet tick, tock, tick, tock of the grandfather clock. He was trapped, a rat in a cage of his own making. He looked at the confession. He looked at the waiver. He looked at me, his eyes desperately searching for one last ounce of weakness, one last sign of the clueless old man who would save him. He found none. He let out a horrible broken wail, a sound of total and complete defeat. He crawled over to the coffee table, his hand shaking so badly he could barely pick up the expensive pen he'd used to sign his management fee receipts. He uncapped it, and he signed. He signed the confession. He signed away his inheritance. He signed away his entire life, page after page, his hand shaking, tears and snot dripping onto the pristine legal paper. He finished the last page. He threw the pen. It hit the wall. He just crumpled, weeping on the floor. I picked up the documents. I checked the signatures. They were all there. It was done. I walked to the front door and opened it. The cool night air felt good. "Get out," I said. "Dad," he whispered. "Get out of my house." He staggered to his feet. He stumbled past me out into the darkness, a 40-year-old man with nothing but the $15,000 watch on his wrist and the clothes on his back. I closed the door. 1 month later, I was sitting in Garrett Shaw's office. The sun was streaming in. "So it's done," Garrett said, placing a folder in front of me. "Megan took a plea deal. With the video evidence from the bank and no support from you or Ryan, she had no choice. 18 months suspended sentence, 3 years probation, and a restraining order. She's filed for divorce from Ryan." "And Ryan?" I asked. "True to your word, you didn't press charges. The $87,000 confession is sealed contingent on the inheritance waiver, which, by the way, is now ironclad. He's been officially and totally disinherited from the Hayes estate. He's been calling my office every day. I haven't been taking his calls." I nodded. I felt quiet. I looked at the new set of papers on Garrett's desk. "So what's next?" "Well," Garrett smiled, "now that all the other assets are secure, we can finally talk about the Cassandra Hayes Foundation." I picked up the pen. It felt heavy in my hand. Ryan thought I was a clueless old man. He thought his mother was just a memory. He forgot. He forgot that I had spent 45 years with Cassandra Hayes. He forgot that she and I built an empire together. And he forgot. She never lost. Not ever. Even from the grave. As for me, at 70 years old, I finally learned how to clean up my own house. And I was just getting started. This story teaches you that greed makes you stupid. My son and his wife thought I was just a clueless old man lost in grief. They got so arrogant stealing small amounts they never stopped to think who I was married to. They forgot that Cassandra Hayes never lost a fight. The person you think is weakest is often the one holding the trap. They were so blinded by the bait, the $100,000, they never saw the steel jaws of the audit waiting to snap shut. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They have the most patience.